don't let that lack of knowledge hold you back, because so many of us are really ignorant when we start. And even people who've gone to colleges and got book learning, it doesn't totally prepare you for the experience, I don't think, and so don't let that lack of knowledge, don't let anything that frightens you hold you back. You're only going to start, and at worst you'll fail, but at least you'll have tried.
All right. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. My name is Sean and I'm here today with Jan Cavelle, and she's all the way from UK. And we are so privileged to have her here. She is an author. She wrote the book Scale for Success, Expert Insights into Growing Your Business, which launched last July 2021. So you most probably haven't had that book yet. Get a copy for yourself or head on over to her website, jancavelle.co.uk. We're going to have that in the show notes on this episode. Go to leadershipstack.com. We're going to have the link there. She is also a speaker, and we are going to be hearing her speak today about entrepreneurship, leadership, and management. Hey, Jan, thank you so much for being here on the show.
Sure, and thank you for a wonderful invitation to be here. I'm so excited to be here. I'm really thrilled, and thank you.
I assure you the pleasure and honor is ours, and we're happy to learn from you today. And the first thing that we're so interested to learn, I'm personally super interested to learn, is how did you start off your business? What's the story behind it?
Well, my big business that ran for most of my career, I fell into a little bit accidentally, Sean, it must be said, because I was a single mum and I had two kids that were still quite young, but sort of 5 and 7. So I didn't want to leave them and go out to work because they were already disturbed enough from a divorce and one thing and another. So I thought the only answer is to work at home. But I had absolutely zero money. I was on social security, social support. So I went to them and I said, look, they were a bit more flexible in those days. And I said, look, you can do one or two things. You can keep me on social security forever, or you can let me start a business while I'm on social security and still pay me something and enough while I get it off the ground. And as I say, they were a bit more flexible and they let me do it. A slightly different sort of setup of support I got, but just enough to get us by. And I had a tiny bit left on an old credit card from my marriage days, tiny bit of leeway. And I got a really, really sort of tattiest leaflet printed of some goods I could sell. I'd never made them. I couldn't possibly afford to actually get prototypes or anything. So these were sketches, and that's complimentary of what it looked like, honestly. But there it was. I had a leaflet. And so off I was able to go, and I set up an office with his children, literally because I had a tiny, tiny cottage. And I set up an office on a shelf under the stairs. And I had a fax phone because it was pre anything else days. And I had a card index box, and I bought phone directories because, again, it was a pre-computer, so I couldn't get contacts any other way. And I telephone sold. It was all I thought I could do working from home was get on that phone and hustle like hell. Excuse the French, but my goodness, it took some doing. So yeah, I mean, I just sat on that phone for all the hours that my children would tolerate, really. Trading hours with them of, you go and play with for a while, and then I'll make phone calls, and then we'll go to the park. And very slowly, very, very slowly, it got off the ground.
That's awesome.
And that was the start. And from there, it ended up going into manufacturing, because I had supply chain issues later on, and the actual thing did begin to grow and take off. And I ended up with 2 factory units and 40-something people working for me.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Hands down. And you were a single mom as well. That's very, very difficult to do. And what were some of the things that, maybe give me the top 3 things that you learned during that startup phase all the way to having, 2 factories and 40 people. That's a pretty good scale. That's actually a very good scale. You could live off of that. But from point A, where a lot of people are, a lot of people are starting out. They have no idea. They're clueless where to go, what to do. It's too difficult. It's so difficult to start a business, all the way to growing your business, making it more stable. What are the top 3 things that you could tell us?
I think that one of the things that I would say is don't let that lack of knowledge hold you back, because so many of us are really ignorant when we start. And even people who've gone to colleges and got book learning, it doesn't totally prepare you for the experience, I don't think, and so don't let that lack of knowledge, don't let anything that frightens you hold you back. You're only going to start, and at worst you'll fail, but at least you'll have tried. It's really true that you've got to start. So I think don't let that lack of knowledge make you feel worse than anybody else. You're just as good as everybody else. So that's number one. Number two, I think it's really important to decide where you're going and why you're doing it, because I think that focus on being passionate. I mean, in my case, initially, it was literally putting food on the table for the children, which is a real push. It does focus you quite well. But if you've got a drive, and it can be for your kids, it can be to change the world or to build a huge business or whatever that is that's pushing you on, be really clear about it and be really determined that that's what you're going to achieve. And, then when you have a bad day, you want to stay in bed, we all get them. It doesn't matter, because that drive is enough to get you out there and keep you going. So I think that's really important. I would say let's chuck in a practical one. I think learning your figures is really important. I was terrible at maths at school. It wasn't something that interested me at all. I love words. I ended up a writer after all. So maths was horrible subject. But, of course I had to do it when I had a business. And actually it didn't matter that I was bad about it. I had a calculator, and I began to see that money in business is about patterns. And that began to intrigue me, how you work the patterns. So don't let fear of money and go and find out how to read your own money. Don't give it to somebody else to tell you what's going on in your business. I think really it's so important in those early stages to learn everything yourself about the financial workings of your business.
That's very interesting. A lot of people would say, though, that you should hire an accountant at some point. What do you think about that?
I think the later the better. I think you will always run it better the more you know about finances myself, and again, you get problems later on because, you'll get to a size where you might have an in-house accountant. And of course, or at least an in-house bookkeeper. And if you don't know how to work the figures, I regret to say that human nature being what it is, there's an enormous amount of fraud in the, accountancy industry. And if you don't know and can't read it yourself, you're setting yourself up for a huge fall. But I do think it makes you build a better business if you understand it.
For sure. Speaking about fraud in human nature, has it ever happened to you that you struggled with pilferage, missing items, or theft in your team? What did you do how did you solve that problem?
It was massive, and we're talking both from bookkeeping on that side of things and on the shop floor in the factories. Absolutely huge. I mean, to the extent that petrol would be siphoned out of the vans into people's cars at night. It was hard to. The police are not going to be able to help because there's only a certain amount they can do. You can protect yourself with sensible cameras and what have you. You can certainly track your vans, but if the culture is there once it's started, and particularly if you've got a manager involved, as I had at that point in time, who was also going, oh, don't worry, everybody, I'm going to take this. Let's all do it. It's very hard to reverse. It takes a long while, so be very aware of it. If you've got that sort of business with a shop floor, it's tough.
Yeah, I hear you. So speaking of these things where you have, a manager also being involved in unethical things or theft and pilferage in your company. And that's no joke. A lot of companies here in the Philippines also struggle with that, where you have a supervisor level person who's watching out after everyone else who's, filling in their own pockets in your expense. Let me know what are some of the tips and advice that you could give to those who are struggling with that as well right now. And maybe they're thinking, oh, but that supervisor has been with us for X number of years. It's hard to train a person like that. It's hard to replace this person. Those are the things that goes in the head of these business owners. What did you do to whip that around?
I get entirely the sort of, it's taken us years to train. But actually, I think in the end, you have to chuck that out window, even if it means going back to just you and a couple of other people. If you can't trust your senior staff, you're never going to go on and build that business further in the end, because financially it'll go on making losses. And you will actually be so destroyed by it. But it'll destroy all the culture of your team. I had a business coach at one time who used to call a certain type of person in your business an internal terrorist. And I think it's a very good description of someone who may be doing things like stealing from you, but also is culture destructive. The moment you get somebody who works against the culture of your business, it spreads like a wildfire. Yeah. And even the good people start to join in. They start to think, I have to be the same as everybody else. I can't stand up to that. Or everybody's saying that. Maybe it's true. Maybe he is awful or she is awful or whatever. And, it just attacks everything that your business stands for. And without a really, really good culture, you haven't got a good business. It's as simple as that.
Get rid of the leader. Yeah, I completely agree. Whenever there's something wrong with a team, it's look at the leader. So in our team, that's also what I do. I try to figure out what's the leader doing? Why is the culture like this in this specific team? And usually I change the leader if they show themselves the door. That's all the better. If they show themselves the door, don't need to get rid of them.
Oh, yes. That's ideal.
Yeah, that is ideal.
Oh, hey, and since you're here, can you do me a favor? Can you hit on the subscribe button and hit the bell button and select all notifications so that whenever we have a new video, you're going to be the first one to know. Until then, keep leading.
Change is one of the hardest things to accept because you're comfortable. When they're comfortable about how they've been doing things ever since and it's working, and if it's not broken, don't fix it, then any suggestions that you throw their way, unfortunately, they're not really going to listen to it.